This is CBN Newswatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for CBN Newswatch on this busy Friday, May 17th. Lots to get to in this half hour. Let's begin in the Middle East, from the battleground in Gaza to the legal battles at the Hague. Israel is fighting on multiple fronts. The Jewish state is sending more troops into Rafah to defeat Hamas. And as Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, Israel is finding allies on Capitol Hill among Christian leaders.
Despite international condemnation, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told soldiers that Israel's operation into Rafah, the last major stronghold of Hamas with 4 battalions, will go on and is crucial.
The battle in Rafah is critical. It's not just the rest of their battalions, it's also their oxygen pipes for escape and resupply. This battle, of which you are an integral part, is a battle that decides many things in this campaign.
Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant says more IDF troops will soon join the fighting in Rafah. He says the military action is working, that the IDF is cutting off Hamas's ability to rearm and resupply.
The meaning is we are turning off the tap on Hamas. We are wearing Hamas down.
And Israel today beginning its response to an international legal challenge to its action in Rafah by South Africa. It's asking the International Court of Justice to order Israel to stop its attack on Rafah and indeed get out of the Gaza Strip altogether.
Immediately, totally and unconditionally withdraw Israeli army from the entirety of the Gaza Strip.
But Israel's representative in The Hague emphasized the importance of the Rafah operation. There are dozens of tunnels in Rafah, including those that cross into Egypt. Abductees are held in these tunnels. And in New York, the UN Security Council held its first meeting focused on the hostages held by Hamas, with the U.S. and other countries demanding they be released. Back in the Middle East, the U.S. has finished putting together a floating pier to bring humanitarian aid from offshore into Gaza. A State Department spokesman says that's crucial, as deliveries by land continue to be disrupted by the war, terrorism, or hijackings. The pier was attacked by terrorists in late April. Hamas promises to attack any foreign troops seen helping to bring in aid via that new pier. And in Washington, congressional Republicans, joined by 16 Democrats, have passed a bill to force President Biden to send weapons to Israel. Biden already stopped one shipment of bombs and threatens to halt more deliveries if Israel launches a full-scale invasion of Rafah.
This is a catastrophic decision with global implications. It is obviously being done as a political calculation, and we cannot let this stand.
And if you're not supporting Israel, you're supporting Hamas, a terrorist organization. And so when President Biden said he wants to hold back on those arms sales, he is holding back on Israel's ability to go and fight a war against Hamas.
But the bill is expected to go no further, since Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer won't bring it up for a vote. And on Thursday, the national religious broadcasters reissued a letter sent by more than 150 Christian leaders to President Biden. The letter expressed concern for the White House's unprecedented interference in the affairs of a close ally and called for a course correction.
Chris Mitchell joins us now with more. So, Chris, the UN Security Council held a meeting that focused on the remaining hostages. Can you tell us more about this?
Well, Ephraim, Israel's UN ambassador said it was really the first meeting of any UN body to focus simply on the suffering and the release of the hostages. About 132 now remaining. We know that at least 30, maybe 40 of those are still not alive right now. But since October 7th, the Security Council, according to the Israeli ambassador, said they've really done practically nothing to secure the release of those hostages. They did have an Israeli testify whose daughter and 2 grandchildren were taken hostage. Now, the UN envoy called on Hamas to release the captives, and then in 3 resolutions, the UN Security Council called for the immediate and unconditional release of all those hostages. But there were some nations like Russia, China, and Algeria that condemned, on the other hand, Israel's offensive into Rafah and in Gaza.
Chris, what more can you tell us about Israel's response today regarding the international legal challenge with South Africa, saying the war is genocidal in nature?
Well, Israel is saying those charges are really totally divorced from the facts, and they say that no force, certainly not the court itself, is going to stop its self-defense against Hamas. They believe Rafah is key, and that's part of their defense right now. And they're talking about the tunnels that are providing ammunition, weapons to Hamas on the Egyptian border, and why Rafah is key to their offensive. The Israeli foreign minister said that South Africa is basically serving as the legal team for Hamas, who he says were murderers and rapists on October 7th. And he says repeating a lie 1,000 times doesn't make it true. So they're going to continue to fight on this legal battle, the political fronts, the military front, to do what they can to return these 132 hostages to their loved ones.
What's the latest on developments in the fighting with Hezbollah?
Well, Ephraim, we've been talking about Hezbollah and the northern border for months now, and there's been sirens heard earlier today, and the firing by Hamas is going further into Israel than ever before. And with the possibility of this front up on the northern border to be exploding. There's 100,000 Israelis perhaps away from the border, and will it be resolved? We talked to some people not too long ago at a conference, and their point they're making is that Hezbollah represents a danger not only to Israel, but to the U.S. and to the West, and really shocked when they saw, Hezbollah flags flying on college campuses in the last several weeks. They made the point to us that many of these students really don't know what they're doing when they support a group like Hezbollah.
What can we expect this evening on Jerusalem Dateline?
Well, we have an update on what's happening here, and we have a story, Ephraim, on the idea of Palestinian refugees from Gaza immigrating to the United States. There's also a report on the northern border and Hezbollah, going into more detail about the threat that Hezbollah represents to Israel, a far greater danger than Hamas, and why it's a danger to the U.S. and to the West. We'll have a story as well from Julie Stahl on many of the hostages' testimonies that are being recorded for future generations. And we have a story on the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast that'll come up later this month, and also something called Pray For and Stand With Israel. That'll be this coming Sunday, May 19th. You can go to the website, Pray For and Stand With Israel, about a prayer initiative for churches around the world.
All right, Chris Mitchell, thank you so much. As always, stay safe, and we will be continuing to pray for you and the team there on the ground in Israel. I want to remind you at home, you can see the latest from Jerusalem Dateline this evening on the CBN News Channel beginning at 8. You can also watch it on the CBN News app, or you can find it and follow it on YouTube. Coming up, it is the 70th anniversary of Brown versus the Board of Education. Meet an 88-year-old woman who went to high school in the segregated South. Watch how this life has come full circle, all thanks to the landmark Supreme Court decision. Stay with us. You're watching CBN Newswatch. Welcome back to CBN Newswatch. This week marks the 70th anniversary of the landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision, Brown versus Board of Education. The 1954 case changed public education in America, declaring separate was not equal and mandating desegregation. In Leesburg, Virginia, the fight for equality in schools began long before the Supreme Court decision. Our Wendy Griffith brings us the story.
From 1941 until 1968, this building served as the only high school for black students in Loudoun County, Virginia. 88-year-old Jim Roberts remembers eating lunch in this gym, running down the court in many basketball games, and dancing at the Douglas High School prom.
Was it a fun experience coming to high school here?
Oh, yes, yeah. But I mean, you didn't want to miss school because you got to see friends and you made friends.
And you were on the basketball team.
You was on the basketball team, oh, yeah.
And you said you never missed a prom.
No, never missed a prom. I went to prom all the years.
As a student in the 1950s, Jim didn't see segregation as much of an issue.
How can you miss something if you've never experienced it? That's my take on it.
It was the way it was, right?
It's just the way it was. With the kids, we all played together, everything together. The only thing we didn't go to the same church and didn't go to the same school.
Before high school, Jim attended what was known as the Training School for Blacks in Leesburg. The building, which still stands today, was considered unsafe and did not have indoor plumbing. While Jim may have been too young to see the injustice, his mother and many others worked behind the scenes, attempting to make things right. The real story of how Douglas High School came to be can be traced back to the parents and Black activists who were determined that their sons and daughters would receive a good education, no matter the cost.
They wanted an accredited high school program, but the white government wouldn't give it to them. So they said, we don't have land for that. So they said, okay, so we're going to buy the land.
In 1938, the group formed the Countywide League, raising $4,000 to buy land for a high school. The county, however, wouldn't let them build on the land unless they owned it and forced the league to sell them the land for only $1.
They had to give it to the school system for $1 if they were going to have the high school. After the high school was built, which it was, obviously, we're in it right now, there was no furniture. So the Black community had to produce the furniture themselves. And that is emblematic of what was going on during the segregated era. So they were provided schools, but they were not equal.
Every day, Barbara passed a school that was beautifully done. It had just been built that was for only white students. And she was forced, living in then a segregated Virginia, to go to a segregated Black high school, which required her, every time it rained, to bring an umbrella just to sit in class.
During his address at Regent University's commencement, Virginia Attorney General Jason Miyares recalled the story of Barbara Johns, who in 1951 saw the injustice of segregation and did something about it.
This 16-year-old girl got up at a student assembly, and said, if you're tired of this injustice, please leave school now and march with me to the superintendent's office to demand change.
That march led to a group of lawsuits against school districts in Virginia, Kansas, South Carolina, Delaware, and the District of Columbia, which became Brown versus Board of Education.
What you may not realize is over 75% of the plaintiffs in that case were actually those plaintiffs led by Barbara Johns. They were Virginians.
Brown versus Board of Education is one of those landmark Supreme Court decisions that really changed the history in our country forever and for the good. It's important for us to have an appreciation for what that case did for us. You know, I came along well after schools were desegregated, and I think about what my experience would have been had I not had the opportunity to come to know certain friends that I had.
The justices ruled unanimously in the landmark 1954 Brown decision, and the following year they ruled unanimously again in a follow-up decision, instructing the states to begin desegregating with, quote, all deliberate speed. Still, Loudoun County held out until 1968. The county officially apologized to the Black community in 2020 for not fighting school segregation. Today, the Douglas High School building houses other educational programs and serves as a museum to the original all-Black high school. When giving walking tours of Douglas, Roberts says he's always asked the same question.
What was here before? What was here before? So this being here, this is a monument to the Black community and to all of America, the struggles that we went through.
Roberts, who would join the Navy after high school and work at a number of jobs throughout his life, says that while we've come a long way in race relations, it's only faith in God that will see you through.
The thing that I think of when I read my Bible, and I see it through all the way through the Bible from Genesis, is the word truth. Truth will prevail. Regardless, it might take a while to do it, but the truth will prevail.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Leesburg, Virginia.
Still ahead, we're going to take you inside the world of cicadas and find out its historical significance. Stay with us. You are watching CBN Newswatch. We'll be right back. Welcome back to CBN Newswatch. You might have heard them buzzing about all around you. In parts of the United States, cicadas are emerging from their 17-year wait underground, and they are making their presence known. CBN correspondent Paul Petit takes us inside the world of the noisy insect and shows us why this year's appearance is an historic event.
You may not always see them, but you can certainly hear them.
We're about to see billions of insects known as cicadas, commonly referred to as periodical cicadas because they only come out periodically every 13 or 17 years, depending on what broods you're talking about.
17 states from northwest Louisiana up through Illinois and portions of the southeast will experience what some are calling Cicadageddon. Entomologists expect the harmless but noisy insects to emerge from the ground to feed and mate during May and June.
When soil temperatures hit about 64 degrees 6 inches down on the year of an emergence, that's when they all know that's their cue to start coming out of the ground.
2024 will welcome 2 broods of cicadas, classified as 19 and 13. Certain northern states will see both, pushing the total cicada population into the trillions, something that hasn't happened since 1803.
There are a few overlapping counties there in Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, where you may see both of those emergences coming out at once, and you may have twice as many periodical cicadas.
And when it comes to the noise level of cicadas, this will give you a pretty good idea. Yeah, in full throttle, cicadas could actually be 10 decibels louder than a police siren. In fact, in one South Carolina county, officials had to tell residents to stop calling 911, reporting that alarms were going off.
Males are the only ones that make the noise, and they move into calling areas. They want to all be as loud as possible to draw in those ladies from as far out as they can.
For more insight to this rare occurrence, we turn to the author of God and the World of Insects.
The perceived conflict between science and the Bible was something that I just wanted to help bridge a gap, particularly in my field in entomology.
Josh Shoemaker, entomologist and biblical scholar, enjoys where the two fields intersect.
If you look at the covenant that God made with Noah, in that covenant, he says he's making it with Noah, but it says he's also making it with all the creatures of the earth. And so to me, when I look at that passage, it shows me that the insects are also something that's important to God.
While cicadas are often referred to as locusts, they are actually 2 different species. Some of the Jewish community liken the noise cicadas make to a song of liberation, much like the sound from Miriam's tambourine as she led the Hebrew women in worship after crossing the Red Sea.
Here we have these cicadas. They really have been trapped for 17 years. You know, they were in their own Egypt. They were in their own exile. They were under the ground. You know, they were in these tunnels, you know, held hostage by the ground. And when they come out, don't look at it that they are making your life miserable. Look at it that they are singing to you. There's a message. There's a liberation.
Rabbi Afzon writes for the American Israelite, a Jewish newspaper in Cincinnati. His monthly column is titled Lessons for Life from Life. He believes everything we see and hear is ordained from God for a purpose, even the noise or singing from a cicada.
And that's really how we have to live our life. We have to be singing God's praises.
Paul Petit, CBN News.
Coming up, a ceremony honoring one of the greatest evangelists of our time. Stay with us. You're watching CBN Newswatch. Welcome back to CBN Newswatch. A statue of the late Reverend Billy Graham now stands inside the U.S. Capitol as of Thursday. The 7-foot-tall bronze statue of the evangelist was unveiled Thursday in a ceremony in the National Statuary Hall. Tara Mergener was there, and she brings us the honor.
The decision to place Graham's statue in the Capitol comes after nearly a decade of efforts by North Carolina lawmakers and reflects his profound impact on American society. Crafted by a North Carolina artist, Graham is depicted in a moment of reflection, holding an open Bible, a symbol of his commitment to sharing the gospel. Inscribed at the base are the Bible verses John 3:16 and John 14:6.
He believed the Bible cover to cover. He didn't understand it all, but he certainly believed it all, every word of it.
Born and raised in Charlotte, Graham's journey to faith began as a teenager.
Man cannot be saved by bread alone.
Throughout his life, he preached to approximately 215 million people and counseled world leaders and U.S. presidents. In 2018, Graham died at age 99.
My father, first of all, would have felt uncomfortable because he would want all the attention to be given to Jesus Christ, not himself. But I'm grateful that this statue, for years to come, will be a reminder to future generations of the importance of God's word.
But my grandfather was just a farm boy from North Carolina who was obedient on God's calling on his life, and that was to teach the gospel simply.
As part of a broader effort to replace controversial figures, North Carolina chose history's most widely heard Christian evangelist.
And even as he preached to hundreds of millions and ministered to and walked with presidents and kings, what we love about Billy Graham is that he exemplified Christ's humility. Reverend Graham humbled himself to care for the poor and prisoners, the forgotten, the lost, and least of these, exactly what the Scripture tells us to do.
All to thee, my blessed Savior, I surrender.
Graham is one of the few private citizens to hold 3 of the highest honors from Congress: a Congressional Gold Medal, to have laid in honor at the Capitol, and to have a statue commissioned for the Statuary Hall collection. On Capitol Hill, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Time for your Friday Faithful. I hope you will take this as a gentle reminder in time of great peace and times of great trouble. God is God. He is perfect, He is holy, and He cannot lie. All of His words are true. And His word says He sent His Son to give us all life, not just life, but life abundantly. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. Remember, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. Take a moment, let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or this week. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And you can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you back here come Monday. Goodbye, God bless.